Beautiful. So we are here for another episode of Owning Her Health. I'm super excited. I have the lovely Dr. Andrea Moore, um, and her practice is working through the lens of bringing, rehabilitative medicine, physical therapy per se, bringing in a little bit more holistic look at it, and working with persistent pain conditions from a place of empowerment. Really is really where I kind of look at her. And I know that Andrea will be able to explain her passion and her mission a lot probably better than me. But basically, she's been years, like, this is a journey. That's one of the reasons she had made a post a couple months ago that I found was really honest and revealing for her as a practitioner. I think it's super important, especially when you're dealing with pain.
Welcome to this episode of Owning Her Health with your host, Dr. Lisa Holland. Join Lisa as she starts the conversation on what it really takes to become a healthy, wealthy, and whole CEO of your life. Listen in to real talk by real lady leaders in all walks of life as they open up on personal health stories, wealth, career, and feminine abundant living. Learn how to grow by owning your body, expanding your mind, and aligning your soul with the purpose only you can pursue in this world. Happiness begins with owning her health right now.
Before we continue on with the lovely Dr. Andrea Moore, I want to welcome whoever is new to my audience over here in the Dr. Lisa sphere and the Curvy Hustle. For those of you who are new, to my women's empowerment work, I'm really, really looking forward to getting to know what's interesting to you. And if at any time you would be so kind as to leave some feedback at the Apple Podcast, that would be that would be great. Or if you can send me some and tell me what you'd want to be hearing, or if you know amazing people, or if you are one, because I know a lot of you that listen in are these amazing medicine women on the rise that are flipping their pain and turning them into passion projects and even a lot of times a profit. But I wanted to make sure that you guys kind of understood that you're going to be hearing a lot more about the Curvy Hustle Society. I've switched over the Goddess Wisdom Mastermind. We've outgrown it. We've grown into something bigger and better, and I'm excited because for the past 4 years, if you are new to me, for the past 4 years, I have been using my experience as a holistic clinician and entrepreneur to mentor, organize, and organically launch over 200 women, most of them moms, not all of them, but all of them birthing and using their mothering vibe in some way into their own lifestyle, medicine careers, and personal economy. So I have really coined this often spiraling, nonlinear path that many of us who are using entrepreneurship as part of our healing, as part of our personal empowerment path, right? As part of our sacred success path. I have coined that path the Curvy Hustle. Because here's the thing. What I was finding as this metaphysical mainstreamer, as crazy as that sounds, I never wanted to be an Ayurvedic specialist in my physio yogi. I never wanted to be a straightforward researcher, kind of taking all of the spirituality out of conversations, all of the energy medicine out of conversation, because I actually think, and what has come to be, is that is actually the part of healing that was owned by us in our innate form as women, and made us really the best healers for a really long time. And we were just as pushed out as all the naturopaths and all the holistic healers and things like that, and put into these, subcategories as nurse and therapists and counselors and kind of adjunct allied health. And the reality is that when you look at things, right, that's kind of placed us in a survival mentality in an allopathic world that has not necessarily welcomed the healers. And therefore what has happened is that we tend to make less money. We tend to, because of our value system and our core approach to things, we're not necessarily sitting here trying to be the biggest, baddest capitalist in the whole entire world. But here's the thing. I create roadmaps to get from the life that you're living today to the life that you want to be living tomorrow through a blend of life coaching, self inquiry, physiological state, getting yourself in a state of receptivity and productivity, holistic health auditing, looking at kind of are you even in a position, your vitality, even enough to handle what we're going to give you and hand you in success. I've unwired generational conditioning, identified old belief systems, creating new ones. I would do this all in my clinical approach. I brought that into Mind Body Brand Academy, and in that wonderful 8-week incubator that I ran 2 times a year, we would do this to launch women from their old belief systems about how they were going to be kind of an employee in somebody else's system or a modality, and then get them to a point where they literally could have a platform and a community like me, like what I have here with you. But I realized there was a huge gap that I was missing, and that was especially apparent to me over the past couple of years with this pandemic, is that what I really am teaching and have always been teaching is this leap from a survive mentality into a thrive mentality. And I've just put it into different boxes for that population. And that's really what I want you guys all to do. But you need to kind of live that way. You need to kind of understand and identify what limiting beliefs in your life you have, in your personal life. I am a firm believer that the successful women that I work with, these professional, well-established women who know their things, they're not stopped by the normal imposter syndrome. They're actually the flip. They're scared of success. And it's not that they're scared of success in their showing up in their careers as much as I think it is in their personal lives. What will happen in this well-crafted personal life that I've been kind of juggling if I actually became so successful, if I actually started getting that much money that might be really more than my partner's money? Maybe the dynamics would change. There's all these underlying beliefs. Maybe my friends would leave me. Maybe I wouldn't know how to be, the cul-de-sac mom on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then jump onto a plane and kind of be, touring the world under my own name. I get it. I got it because it started paralyzing me, and I saw how much I had limited myself, and it ended up in my own discovery about how much I was trying to fit into my home life with this big, big dream. And also how there was really no space for me to evolve as a woman who was dealing with these things on a personal front or a cultural front, um, a gender side, as well as a business side. And it wasn't going to happen by me being in communities where I didn't feel safe, where there are a bunch of guys mentoring me and just way more guys who had women at home who were supporting them, or men at home, or whatever their situation was. But they basically had partners at home that were supporting them to do all these big things in life. That wasn't my story. I was that person supporting somebody else as well as myself. These kind of little nuances that I said, we need a home. And so the Curvy Hustle Society's born for that. And I want you to be a founding member. Why? Because you're going to get the perks. I did that when I joined Kajabi, my platform that I host all of my things, and I mentor many of my business and idea clients on, platform build clients on. I went in, they were kind of launching, they had this dream, but I knew from kind of shoestringing pieces together and the frustration and who I was and where I wanted to put my energy and pay attention and pay into to pay attention, that I needed a one-stop shop. And I was thinking, what if I did that for you guys here? What if I did that for these beautiful, emerging entrepreneurs that are also healers, that are using entrepreneurship as part of their healing path, who are going to be these emerging medicine women that want to focus as coaches and educators and counselors and therapists and spiritual leaders and game changers and just teachers and keynote speakers and program producers. How can I help them re-embrace this whole way of living curvy, this whole way to live that way, and not just follow my lead into a personal brand that can be turned into community for work, but what if it was just to follow my way into feeling as free as me? It really it really is about having that freedom lifestyle. And I will tell you, I've had it consistently, which with this control of how I spend my day and who I spend it with, and who I pour my gifts into and who I allow pour into me as I'm learning all sorts of financial situations, all sorts of success through two different companies now. It's not so much about the business as it is about your life. And so if you want to take that same idea I do on Owning Her Health podcast, real women, real talk, real personality about our bodies, minds, passion, goals, and goddess loving living, I thought, let's make a home for that. So I want you to go over to www.drlisahollandpt.com and get on my launch group, okay? We're going to have I normally do a launch party before Mind Body Brand Academy in March and April. And we're going to actually spend February pouring and returning back to love for you. And I'm going to give you the next 365 days of my hugs and kisses, my honesty, my understanding of where you are being uniquely, and your understanding of this path, because sometimes we don't quite understand where we fit, grounding so that you can blossom, okay, and evolve. And then some of my, secrets, these metaphysical secrets in one spot, blending in the Ayurvedic forces and the Hermetics. And this stuff, guys, is not woo. We actually have epigenetics. We actually understand that the world we have, the psychology, all of this stuff, you learn how to negotiate in life and you're going to be able to be in sales. It's all about power, guys. It's all about using our power. It's not just owning power, but it's understanding what you own. So we're going to focus on designing it from day one for you over there. So www.drlisahollandpt.com, and you can see a testimonial of kind of how I work with some people. But most of all, I want you to get on the email list. Give us a try. Give me some feedback. Because I know some of you, you're going to get inspiration, you're going to get motivation, you're going to get education. But what I want to also give you that is unique with my communities is that you get personal transformation. And it's not just of mindset. I literally, with my background in behaviors and motivators, can bring in some of the science with my background in energetics, bring in some of that, get you into a physiological state with my background in functional medicine and the nervous system, and prepping that for optimal performance, both when I was working with Division I athletes and also when I was working the game of pregnancy. It's very rare where you can be holistically supported like that and really get some mindset shifts done at a deep level, unless you are already in these $1 million, pay for $50,000, $60,000 mastermind groups. The fact is that women are not supported until they've proven themselves the way men are. And our communities tend to be not holding us as accountable as we need to, and not pouring into us with the containment, with that masculine containment, because they tend to be a lot of like women, divine feminine, and very biased towards that. We need the blend. We need the tantra of business. And who better than somebody who's been playing this game at all those levels: mind, body, spirit, yogi. If we're going to be talking tantra and studying life, somebody who's studied tantra on multiple levels. So, bringing that into your real life, somebody who's not necessarily going to tell you to, being you, boo. I want you to actually be you. I want you to show up authentically. But what does that really mean? What does that really mean, right? And the reality is we need some sexy, sassy, successful women out there. We don't need the show up with vulnerability kind of person that just is like a mess. Because here's the thing, people are looking at a certain image of success. And I'm not saying you have to be perfect, and I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but again, we need to be professional. We need to be professional. And I think that a lot of men are attracted to the business, the real networking, and money's currency, guys. So's your energy. So's the time you spend. That's all currency. And we need to learn how to manage that. And it's okay to say, like men kind of look at business as kind of sexy, and it's going to get them the ladies, and it's going to get them, the partners and the titles and the cars and the this and the that. You don't have to want that, but it's okay to say as women that we want luxury. Our luxury might look a little different. It might be, hey, I love the fact that I can like leave at 2 o'clock and go work in my garden. But that's still luxury to us. We need to start seeing people that are being able to manage that are actually being able to craft it, even if they don't have somebody supporting their back and it being their side hustle. We need it to act like an enterprise. You need to leave as a legacy. If you're going to take time away from one thing and do this, you need to leave as a legacy on both ends, in your home and in your business, or in your home and in your career. I firmly believe that, and I believe you can have that life. I don't think we've been given enough examples and models, and I believe you guys are going to be it for the next generation, for your boys. Guys, we're doing this for the men. They need to see it, and then they'll believe it. They don't believe it unless they see it, and it's going to be you. So we are going to go back to me and Andrea talking all about empowerment through healing, and all of women's health, because it's so holistic. Not that men's isn't, but they get by with just patch up the body. But I think you need to have a real relationship with your healthcare provider, especially when you're dealing with women and the complexity just in our cycles and our hormones and all of this other stuff. But the person in general that's bringing you the work. Here I have a practitioner with Andrea, who is a mom, a wife, recovering health perfectionist, she calls herself. Her career path has been, everything about sort of dealing with brain fog and anxiety and depression. So she's walking this walk, and I have a unique, it feels like a unique kind of affinity as a women's health empowerment sort of coach here, or guide, where I just feel so drawn to these natural modern day medicine women who are coming onto the scene. I feel really trying, like having walked the path, where this very much feels like a very modern day Renaissance, but the women are going to be the featured ones. And we're going to bring forth this sort of the heroine's journey, the idea of Campbell's, hero's walk, and then the feminine form of that. This is the modern day, because I think one of the things that was lacking in the last attempt to show a heroine's journey versus the hero's journey was that it still was very traditional. And I think we've gotten past that, where there's this fusion of women who have these whole careers, and they're working in their homes, and hopefully trying to bring their partners into it, and what that can look like. And what it's looked like, I think, is a lot of what Andrea's worked through, which is anxiety and post-concussion syndrome and brain fog and all of this, and then flipping that pain, turning it into her professional career, bringing in the things she did: nutrition, life coaching, working through patriarchy, which we'll probably have a little conversation through, in this conversation of pain care, in this normal, this hurts, my back hurts, or whatever. So thank you so much, Andrea, for being here. What did I get wrong? Tell me a little bit more about, who you are, how you got here, because
yes. And first of all, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I love it. So interesting to even hear you summarize things from the outside in. And I love what you're saying about this new age Renaissance with women leading it. Yes. Yes. So gosh, how did I think to bring it in? Well, it was kind of by necessity. From as long as I can remember, throughout high school and then definitely through college, really struggled. Well, I was diagnosed with ADD and was on medications, and I struggled with the medication so badly. I did not feel like they helped me, but I was very dependent and addicted to them, because if I didn't take them, I was non-functional. So a lot of my journey started about being there has to be a better way, because this isn't working. And every time I was seeking out conventional medicine, I would get blown off. The doctors would be like, there's no, I mean, they like would switch up my medications here and there, but like
Right.
for the most part, and nothing ever helped. And then it was just like, well, you need to go on now more medications for these side effects. And at one point I was told I just shouldn't exercise because of the way it was affecting my heart rate. So you just shouldn't exercise. And here I am in college at this point, physiology, like taking all these exercise science class and exercise physiology classes, learning about the benefits of exercise. And I was like, this is not adding up. This cannot be right. So that was such a huge start to my journey of like, conventional medicine is amazing and it has all these amazing things, but it is not the whole picture. Like it is not helping me. It is not
Well,
serving
yeah, that's
me.
the biggest point about it, right?
Yes.
Like it's so segmented that we are losing the forest amongst the trees.
Yes, exactly. So, so much of my journey was there is something wrong with me. There is something wrong with my brain. I must fix it. And I learned later that that was not the healthiest approach, but that is where I started on my journey. And so it was through that I found nutrition and learned about how nutrition can affect your memory and can affect your attention. And I had no idea. I was literally in college eating like a pint of ice cream for dinner and drinking 5 or 6 Diet Cokes a day because I mean, what else do college students do?
Right.
And drinking a lot. um, so I started to learn how food can affect the body, which is so food nutrition was always a interest pretty early on as well. I'm like trying to like shorten the story here. So it's like I ended up going to physical therapy school because I just really loved that physical therapy seemed to take a look at the whole body. My dad's a doctor, my mom's a dentist. I was kind of expected to go to medical school, and I was like, I cannot do medical school. Like I decided very early on that that was not for me because my experience with doctors had not been a positive one. And I did not want to go down that route. So physical therapy seemed kind of like a next best alternative. I don't think I was actually that passionate about it going into it, to be honest. It just felt like, well, I guess that's what I got to do. If I got to get a doctorate, here's another way to do it. I also secretly just wanted to be a physical therapist for animals. And that was one of the routes in. And I was like, I don't really like humans. I don't really want to work with them.
Right.
So I
Animals are
went to
just so much more forging.
exactly. I went to physical therapy school, and in physical therapy school, I just learned that I really do love humans a lot. So we never went the animal route. But in physical therapy school, not only was I still dealing with all these brain issues, but and I mean, this really started in college, but was having chronic pain this whole time. Like my sister remembers me complaining about being in pain from when I was a kid. And it started to like, I was becoming more and more aware of it, and it was getting worse in physical therapy school. And I think a lot of the awareness was all of a sudden that like it wasn't normal. I think I had experienced it my whole life that I didn't know people walked around not feeling pain all the time. I just thought I was being a baby and that I was the only one complaining about it. But then I, start talking to people, and it turns out not everyone just has pain in all their joints at all times. What do you know?
Right.
Because I think the few times I had brought that to the doctors, they just blew me off. And so I was like, oh, okay, like I just need to suck it up. So I was doing then all the physical therapy things, and they weren't working. And so I was kind of, or very early on in my career, was feeling like I was having a whole crisis about what am I doing? I'm, getting my doctorate in physical therapy. It's not even helping me. And, at this point I'm working, and just, the more I would talk to people, I, just started getting all these women on my schedule because the universe just gives you exactly who you need to see. Right.
Yeah.
And I was getting so many women who were with issues that were so similar to mine, of just chronic pain, being blown off by doctors. They had tried everything. They were incredibly intelligent women. They had tried so many things, and they just were not getting the results, and nobody was listening to them. So through all of this, I ended up finding life coaching, and thought that, it was the most amazing thing to learn about how your thoughts can, influence your life. And I also struggled with it hugely. I saw how it was helping other people, but it felt like when I would try it for myself, I would even use it with people and it would help them. But it felt like for myself, it often just made me feel worse, because then I would just use it as another tool against myself, as like, oh my gosh, I'm just creating all these issues in my life and I'm trying to fix my thoughts, but I don't know how to do it. Here's another reason that I'm broken. Here's another thing that's wrong with my brain. It just doesn't work for my brain. I am this, special snowflake who is
Right.
so broken, right? Is so beyond helping that even this thing isn't helping me. So, and then somewhere in all of this, I got into a car accident, which gave me a really, really bad concussion. I was out of work for months. And obviously that did not help my brain issues. So
Right.
it was really at that point though, where it was such like yeah, felt like a low point in terms of my brain function, that it was like I finally had to come to this place of acceptance
Mm.
of where I was. And this took a while to get there. This was not
Yeah,
right
because
away.
it is. It's like,
Yes.
as you're speaking, it's like what I said before. It's this, it is the path of that, Joseph Campbell idea of the
Mm-hmm.
archetype, to some extent, of moving through these different
Yes.
roles in life. And then,
Mhm.
again, putting my little Vedic wisdom hat on, we have this concept of reincarnation. And I think, it's taken to be where you have to literally like drop dead in this physical form. But the reality is that if you combined those two concepts, every day is really a new opportunity of like
Mhm.
learning. And then you bring in something like A Course in Miracles, with like every single relationship, every single
Mhm.
interaction is a lesson to be learned. um, what you're saying is a beautiful representation of that idea of like, you're going to meet this person in the mirror. You're going to meet this person in the
Mhm.
mirror along the way. You're going to meet this person. Like, it's not, you're going to really meet a magician along the way. I do tarot cards, and that's
Mm.
another beautiful representation through the story, starting from being the fool all the way to owning the world. And it's the same thing. It's what you want to see in that card, in that mirror.
Yeah.
So I think that's a beautiful representation of, I'm all about mind over body. Joseph Sarno's work back in the 90s was where I kind of like, I saw it in my dad. I had a chronic pain dad. Um,
Mhm.
and I was like, this is it. And that what actually took me to yoga, because they were the only system that was
Mm.
bringing in mind and body, nutrition. Like, it was like almost like
Yeah.
all of the different little pieces, but I could do it in one thing. And obviously that is basically a life coaching thing. So everything you're saying makes total sense to me, and I think to my audience. So,
Mhm.
but getting to that place of acceptance feels
Mhm.
like, I don't know if that's getting the world. I feel like you have to get to that place of acceptance. It's almost like that's after on the tarot card, the Hierophant, and kind of going within and having your little light through the darkness. And then you get to this place where you're really wise. It's not what you know, it's how you're implementing it. And
Mhm.
then you've learned, and you are wise. So when did you start to, what are you seeing in your practice now with people when you bring in all of this sort of holistic roadmap or blue? I don't know if you would call it a blueprint or a roadmap. I see those two things as different, but in your methods of working, which of those do you kind of work with them on, and what are you seeing?
Yeah. So one of the huge things that I then brought in when after I got to this place of acceptance was the somatic embodiment work and trauma work, because I realized that that was not, or that was why that my brain was like it was just living in this fight or flight state at all times, right? Like I could not really take anything in or heal, because your brain can't heal when it's living in fight or flight all the time. And I work a lot with intergenerational trauma now.
Hmm.
And because that was such a huge part for me, is that I was carrying around not only my own traumas, but also I have my parents and my grandparents both have incredibly traumatic lives and histories. And I always thought that since I grew up like this privileged, person, I didn't have any trauma, when really, not only was that not true on a lot of levels, but also I was also carrying trauma from my lineage and from my parents who are still alive today. And because they're immigrants. And it was in healing that finally allowed my body to like settle and start to come to safety and to start to be able to heal. And so this is one of my biggest things for my work with women, is really understanding where their system is and its ability to feel safety. Because for me, and this is still, comes up, is that when you have been living with chaos and when your system is not used to living in like a parasympathetic state, you can't just throw it into that state.
Right.
Because that state becomes a threat, because it's like equivalent to someone like throwing your body into a middle of, a war zone and being like, now breathe. Your body's like, what are you doing? Are you insane? We're gonna die. Like, and it is fighting you tooth and nail. It cannot relax. And this is obviously on like almost a much more, not always as obvious as a level, right? But it really feels like to your system that when you're trying to settle it down, when you're trying to breathe, when you're trying to meditate, that it's threatening. And that's what was happening to me. It's like I was trying to meditate, I was trying to do breath work, I was trying to do all these things and even change my thoughts. But my brain is like, if you do that, you're gonna die. What are you doing? You need to be on alert mode. So when I'm working with women, my first thing that I'm doing is really just trying to assess, how does their system feel safe being safe? And for most women that I'm working with chronic pain, it's no, they do not feel safe being safe.
And do you find, because I know you were kind of with like, more ambitious, successful, successful on paper as you describe it, people, what I found, and I'm wondering if you find that as well, like this particular group, I would end up getting, I'd see these women in the community and then they'd go back to their doctors and they'd be like totally different. And the doctors would be like, what are you doing? And then the doctor would like secretly come see me because she was like, wait a minute, like not so much to be like, what are you doing there? But like, they were like, I need this, And then when I'd get this professional woman with what you're saying, they don't identify with themselves as not feeling safe. Like they can't rationalize like what you're saying, even though you're like it was so good when I'd get like a physician or a physical therapist or somebody, because I can say things like, it was hard until this conversation. Again, I'm talking 2005 to 2013. I didn't have this vernacular that you're talking about, but I'd say things like, how sometimes you'll get somebody and they're really anxious about, and you can't like if they were an OBGYN, I'd be like, and you really can't get the speculum in, I'd have to relate it. Now I can say things like, how the brain and the amygdala, like, now they kind of get it. But do you find that? Because when we're speaking to people who don't have that those words, like I think we're so like, again, because of the trauma or whatever, we're so not embodied that conversation. How are you getting them on board or to see it when they really have not? They don't have the language nor the awareness.
Yeah. So I would say that I work with like two of the most common types of women I work with. One is I work with a lot of coaches, a lot of like life coaches. And so for these life coaches, they had a similar experience of me, of like, they know thought work is so valuable. They've seen it help their clients, but they feel like they cannot apply it to themselves, or they see where they get stuck or where it almost can make things worse. And I'm seeing this more and more often. I just think as the life coaching world is, growing as a profession and has had longer to exist, is you see more and more of this, like life coaches almost getting mad at life coaching. And it's not that anything's wrong with life coaching. It's just that when it's not trauma informed, for somebody who needs trauma informed, there are people who then will have these like very negative experiences with life coaching. So for those, they understand, they don't necessarily know what's going on. They just think something's wrong with them. Right. But I can explain it from this, like, when you're trying to think a new thought and like your body is like rejecting it and they're like, yes. So we can have this conversation from there. And then the other set of women who, might not have any background in that side of things are women who have just tried everything. Since I work with, just happen to work with incredibly intelligent, more analytical women, just because that's what I am, right? So again, you kind of just attract similar people. They have read every book. They've probably read Sarno. They've read every meditation book. They've done that, but they're like, I cannot sit down to meditate. Do not, they'll even come like, and, you know, and working with me, the first, they're like, do not tell me to meditate. Like they have like this revulsion to it. I'm like, don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to meditate. Right. Because it hasn't worked for them. And they can feel, so I can like describe to them, you know, when you try like, and you feel your system, like just triggering up, like that is your system not feeling safe to like bring itself down.
So making
Because
it kind of like the linear logical for them so they could relate to what they feel. And I think that's important for anyone listening to this. You know, you may very well not realize it because you're so damn competent and you're so good at filling in the gaps and you're so good at like patching and sort of making these bridges between things and that are not working, that sometimes you don't realize what you've been missing. And I think women in general haven't realized that. I've been having that conversation a lot. We went into the workforce, we're doing all this stuff, we want to, you know, but the reality is no one actually taught us enough about our own bodies, because back in the 50s and 60s, when we were more able to maybe even have the time to notice these things, we didn't have the science. We didn't understand. I mean, they hadn't even been studying us for anything. They were just giving us like a by our weight, the same medicine or something like that. So now we have all this wonderful science, but nobody has the time. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody understands. And it's so hard for, I think, highly intelligent, logic-based people to understand there is so much you don't know about yourself. I often say it's like when you're walking, just even body parts. I mean, who even knows their vagina? Like they don't even understand, like the labia and the vagina aren't even the same thing. You know, like it's like it's having I always tell them it's like having a room in your house. And you've been taking care of your house and whatever, and there's this room and you keep walking by it and you know it's there, and like you open the door maybe, or other people always open the door. Everybody else knows what's in that room but you. And then like, but you don't ever go, and then you go in there and you're like, what the hell? Like it's dark, you don't understand it, and you might just close the door. So that's a super important point I think you put, is like, you may need a coach, you may need a therapist, you may need a physician, you may need a whole team to even be able to go back to feeling and then determining your function from that feel. And then that's a whole identity shift. Like we're so thinking like we don't understand, and how you say it, we're talking about this priming of us, and you have all these people like Tony Robbins, like prime yourself and do all this, like jump in a cold bath and I get the science, but like for some people, like what you're saying, that might not be your approach. It might be best to speak to somebody to see where your system is, right?
Yes. And really my biggest approach, my biggest goal with women is that they can get to the place where they can turn inwards to ask their own body. Because ultimately, I love the cold bath example. It's just, there is so much advice and there's a ton of science to support a cold bath, right? Like it's not that the advice or some of these things out there are wrong. It just may not be right for your body at this certain time.
Right. This is like the evolving science. For some people, want it to be so black and white that they can't understand. This is a spectrum and you're going to go kind of back and forth.
Yes, exactly. And so for one woman, like I don't, when I'm working with people, I really don't work with like a specific tool like that. For one, I just have never, probably, I don't know, I shouldn't say never. In this stage of my life, I would never get in an ice bath, not doing that. But it's not that it's not helpful, right? Like, or it's not that there's not tons of people
it's helping some people, but it might not be what you need right now.
So I don't ever, like, there's no tools or tricks or things like that I ascribe to, because I don't know what is right for somebody's body. What I know is that your body knows what is right.
Right.
So I am always taking somebody back to themselves, always like, okay, let's check in. Let's say they're like, oh, well, I just read about this thing and this sounds so great. Do you think this is right for me? I don't know. I have
Right.
absolutely no idea. What does your body think? And so it's like getting to the point where then you can sit and be with your body and really ask it, like, does this feel like a hell yes or a fuck yes, or like
Yeah.
a, sometimes it's not even a fuck yes, sometimes it's a okay, no, actually I don't want to do this, but
Right.
yes, I actually know this is the right thing for me, right? It's that
And there's
feeling of like
layers to that because you got to get
expansiveness.
back the
So many
trust. You
layers.
got to get
So
back
many
the,
layers.
yeah. So if you,
Yeah.
so you were talking about, coming back to yourself. So if you could talk to the Andrea 10 years ago, as the wise woman you are now, because again, in a quantum world, maybe we can do that, right? We
Yes.
can go back and we can, some of that trauma work is going back to embodying those moments and giving them a different spin to allow their permission to move forward.
Yes.
What have you, or even would you say to that Andrea of 10 years ago?
Yeah. And yes, I have. I definitely do a lot of not just inner child work, but yes, like past you versions of you work. I would tell her that she isn't broken. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. That she is whole and beautiful and is exactly how she needs to be.
I think that's beautiful, and that really is right. We're talking about the fix and the breaking, and
Yeah.
when you go through medical trainings, they kind of are showing you all these diagnostics, and everybody has to fit in
Mhm.
this certain box, and then this is what you do, and then it got really cloudy too. I had the blessing of treating at a time where I could just say, this is what we're going to do based on some of my opinion and your
Mhm.
opinion and whatever, like really use that evidence base. Like, what do you think? What do I think? And then all of a sudden it turned into, 10 years into it or whatever, like, no, this is what you're going to get paid for. And you pick one of these things and that goes with this diagnosis. And it stopped being, all of a sudden, everybody stopped caring about the three prongs on the evidence base, but they kept talking about that one prong of it's in the research. It says this is what we do with this. And yet it's not black and white. So
Mhm.
when you kind of are talking about like having that conversation with ourselves, it's really to give ourselves a voice. And hopefully, I'm hoping with people like you, people like me, people like some of the other people that are on this show, we get these people back to taking that personal authority. And it's interesting what you say about the work you're doing at that place of safety, because one of the three main feminine codes that I think have been constipated in us, in our, again, leaning into our masculine side to work in the worldly success patterns, but not necessarily moving to almost that sacred success, which was a little bit more feminine for men and women, because nobody's modeling it for the men. So why are we surprised they don't
Mhm.
know what to do? We don't even know what to do. Um, One of the codes I think that we haven't massaged is that safety and security code, and what that feels for us, because it used to be being in certain people's protection and provision groups and things like that. And now we sort of put ourselves out there and we don't necessarily have that protection and provision. But then there's also having personal authority is another code that I'll try to see if that's blocked on them. And then the emotional, relational. And again, these all sort of intertwine and work into each other. So where, if you were like, if everything works out for you, does any of that resonate with the work you're doing? Like in 10 years, if you could talk back, and we're both doing our work or whatever, what would you love to, if you're that person in 10 years from now, say that's going on in this conversation in your ear tonight as you're sleeping? What would you love to
Oh
hear
my
from
gosh.
her?
That people are connected back into themselves. Like that is the first thing that is almost checked on when you go to the
Mhm.
doctor or you go to seek any type of help, because it's, again, it's like the any intervention, even again the best intervention, like even the most needed surgery, when it's done from a place of personal authority and confidence that this is the right decision, that you just had that pause with yourself to be like, okay, is this what my body needs? And she's like, yes, absolutely. Right. And there's that like almost consent from your own body to enter X treatment, whatever it is, or whatever intervention, or even a food, that you're putting into your body, that would change everything.
Yeah. And it really does require
Yeah.
presence. I think people
Oh
might,
my gosh,
listen to
yes.
this and are like, oh, that's really good if I had the time. But it's like, what are you racing towards?
Yes,
Right? Like you have
exactly.
no time. This, what we just talked about, would be having time to experience your life in your body, in the vehicle that's been given to you to
Mhm.
explore and have sensations and
Mhm.
interactions and emotions and processes. So where are you racing to? Where is this magical place and time? Can you tell me it? Like, can you tell me exactly the day and the time you
Mhm.
get there? Like, we don't even have a GPS to this place. What the hell are we doing?
Yes. Oh my God, that's so beautifully said. What an amazing question. And it's funny because I think a lot of people are like, I will have that like, I don't have time. I have to do, X thing. And a lot of times when you really press that question, the thing is, well, I got to get to that point where like everything's in place so I can live my life. Right. So then I can find like, right. So then I can retire. So then I can travel. Right. I need to do XYZ. So then I can finally have time in my schedule. And it's like,
Which is the ego, right? Like you're
yeah.
just what makes you think you're going to be around in 5 years?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
honestly, like what in the past 2 years has it not clicked that that might not be your
Yeah.
story? Like especially
Yeah.
now. I mean, it's a different conversation, 2019, but I feel like
Yeah.
if like when I'm still if I'm still having that conversation with someone right now, I'm like, where were you? And I'm not the
Mhm.
person for that person. I mean, I know I'm not the person
Mhm.
for that person because I don't know how coachable. I don't even treat anymore. I'm not treating.
Mhm.
I've given up treatment because I would rather coach people
Mhm.
and maybe work with some spot treatment things or whatnot because there's so much of a gap there, right? Like we haven't been
Mhm.
coaching ourselves. We used to be able to coach ourselves through maybe at some point when life was
Mhm.
a little simpler and we didn't make it so complex. So where, if somebody's listening to this, where are you? Where can you be there integrative? Do you call what do you call yourself? Are you working with, do they have to have a
Mhm.
pain? Are they dealing with chronic pain? Explain where you are and what you do so we can find you, and where can we find you?
Yeah. So I call myself a chronic pain specialist. Um, and really what I am teaching women to do is learn to turn back inwards and learn to be with the discomfort that comes with that.
Mm,
Um, and that includes a lot of the emotional discomfort, which is why people don't want to do it. It's really uncomfortable, but and it is way more uncomfortable usually for these women to be living their lives without intention. It's just a familiar type of discomfort. So if you're going to be uncomfortable anyways, let's just get uncomfortable in the way that opens up your life and allows you to live your life right now versus the way that, like you said, it's racing towards what? Like,
yeah, like where are we going?
where
Like
where are you going?
give me the
Yeah.
address and the time and I'll be there. I'll meet
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So I'm really, yes, I mainly work with women with chronic pain, but I also do, we end up being a lot in the emotional world and the like. So if you have a lot of, if you know that you're someone who has a lot of difficulty dealing with any type of emotions that feel uncomfortable, or really those like sensations that come up in the body, when you feel shame, when you feel frustration or anger, and those emotions just flood your system, like that is what I work with. It's like
Mhm.
how to get to a place where those can all become your friend, where
Nice.
your pain can become your friend, because on the other side of that is living life on your terms. It's how you want to live it. And I don't know how
Right.
you want to live it. We'll leave it. If you don't even know, that's okay. We kind of figure that out together as well. So,
Nice. And I feel like
yeah.
that's such a similar conversation. And it is, they're kind of
Mhm.
almost like twins, fear and pain. Like, it's
Yes.
the same thing with fear. And if I'm trying to have somebody sort of, in my work with sort of launching people or pivoting their health career into one of these more
Mhm.
expansive views of their skills and their life skills coming into it. It's not always like these techniques you learned in school. Each
Yeah.
of us can bring so much to the table of healing. And like I said, earlier, it's this is what we got to do. I mean, like if you're sitting in your little office thinking, I'm just going to get people's ACLs back, you're so, I'm not saying that's not important work. It is, but for such a small population,
Yeah.
that needs a fully viable, whatever ACL,
Yeah.
anterior cruciate ligament, for those of you that don't know the slang. Where we're going in the future is going to have to be this sort of, I mean, I love it because I'm like thinking we're going to go back to kind of like speaking to our elders. And I mean, we have the opportunity. I don't know if we're going to take that opportunity as humans, and I don't know if we're going to survive much more if we don't. But like, we do have that opportunity to like look at the wisdom of people who have lived and whatnot. And if we can take that into a professional place where we could bridge build for people when they are in chronic pain, I think that's awesome. So what website would they contact you, and what part of the country, where are you? I mean, this talks to people globally, so you're in the United States.
Yeah, but I work all virtually.
Okay.
So all my work is virtual. So it doesn't matter. I actually have someone in Australia right now who's a client. It's 13-hour time difference. It's fun.
I know it's hard to work with them. It's weird, right? You're like, it's 7:00 Sunday here, but it's Monday with you. That's so weird.
Yes, it really is. But yeah, so I work with people all over the world, and you can find me at drandreamoore.com, and that's DRANDREAMOORE.com. And you can find me at the same thing on Instagram at Dr. Andrea Moore. Instagram is where I hang out the most, so I highly recommend just following me there. And if you have any questions, just shoot me a DM. It's me behind the account.
Yes.
And I love hearing from people, so please don't hesitate. I also have my own podcast. It's called the Unweaving Chronic Pain Podcast, so you can find me there. And then lastly, I am just about to come out with a program that walks women through how to do this work in a group. Because I think the group healing aspect has been what's kind of been missing from my work. And I've seen how valuable it is when you can walk this walk with other women. And you know that you are not alone on this journey.
100%. I'm all about women's circles and
Yes.
women, and so being in circle, because that's kind of, again, that table talk that the guys would go off, and we would all talk around the coffee table at so-and-so's house. Again, we think that was so disempowering. No, ladies, that was what you gave up. Like, you don't realize that was very empowering. Like, you were strategizing and you were looking at how this one was dealing with her life and this and that. And we've got to get those circles back, because those wisdom circles are what we would then bring into our homes and influence everybody else in the home. So 100% think that's going to be awesome. Thank you so much, Andrea, for being on Owning Her Health. Any last minute words of advice you want to leave us with?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And really, it's just that you're not alone. You are not broken. Having chronic pain does not mean you are broken. And it is actually just the start of an amazing journey. And often chronic pain can be the catalyst. And so
and pain can be your
your
friend.
invitation.
Pain and fear and all of that.
Back.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And guys, I'll have everything in the show notes. If you want to get in touch with Andrea, take a listen to her podcast. And thank you so much for being on another episode of Owning Her Health. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening into this episode of Owning Her Health with Dr. Lisa Holland. To learn more about her personal and professional development service, visit her online at drlisahollandpt.com.